So today I'm going to give my education on why black folks supposedly love a well done steak. Okay. And I admittedly am guilty of this because I think up until I want to say my mid-20s, I ate my steak well done. And I dated a woman whose ex was a chef. And we were at dinner. I think I took her out to dinner and I ordered my steak well done, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And then I still ordered my steak well done, but she ordered hers medium or medium rare. I can't remember. And, I was really trusting of her because I was pretty disgusted by the idea of the meat that I'm eating is bleeding. All right. It's the way we were raised. I didn't even have my first steak until my 20s. When I was a kid growing up, steak and shrimp were considered to be like rich people food, luxury food sort of thing. So I wasn't even interested in steak until I got a little older. Excuse me. So I tasted her steak, and it was I tasted her steak. That sounds kind of crazy, right? I tasted her steak. I'll try many things once, and it was juicy. It was delicious, and that was it for me. That was the last time I ordered a well done steak. And have been eating them that way since then, But most of the people I know, well, not that I know, but a lot of people that I've come across who I've seen order steak that are black, if I had to put a percentage on it, I would say at least 65% or so, based off the people I know, which is a small circle, order their steak well done. All right. They order it well done. And to be honest with you, I still can enjoy a well done steak just as much as I enjoy a medium steak. Medium is my preferred. I can do medium rare, but I start to get a little grossed out a little bit by it, but I still can tolerate it. Medium is the sweet spot for me personally. You guys let me know, how do you order your steak, or if you can enjoy a well done steak. But I'm going to get an education on this video here, which is titled, Why Black Folks Love a Well Done Steak. All right. If you like this type of content, do me a big favor and like the video. If you want to stay up to date whenever I post, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Let's go ahead and get right into it.
In the culinary world, the debate over steak doneness is almost as intense as the marbling in the beef itself. For decades, chefs and critics and celebrities have passionately defended their favorite level of doneness, drawing from their unique tapestry of personal experiences. Some critics can barely contain their disdain for well-done steaks, often comparing it to the highest of culinary offenses. The late Anthony Bourdain wrote in his memoirs that diners who ask for a well-done steak are answered with fillets that have been spit on. Yet, let's not be too...
I've heard this before. I've definitely seen on social media the hatred toward people who will ruin a good steak by cooking it well done, like a really good grade of meat. It is, I think, a laughable thing, but I can kind of understand people who just are foodies and just enjoy, like, this is the best way that you should enjoy a steak, which at the end of the day is still subjective, or whatever. From what I've seen of Anthony Bourdain, I like him because he speaks his mind.
Quick to pass judgment. The preference for a well-done steak is not a culinary crime. In fact, many people genuinely savor the leather-like texture and flavor throughout a well-cooked steak. Ultimately, though, restaurants should embrace the diverse taste from rare aficionados to well-done devotees. So this brings us to how black folks became associated with well-done steaks.
All right.
And if you like stories like this, you can find more stories like OneMarketHistory.com. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so on my Buy Me Coffee Patreon page in the description below. But without further ado, let's get started.
Now, my favorite cut of steak as of now, and it's subject to change. I haven't tasted every style of steak, but my favorite steak right now, I like a really tender filet mignon, which is what I typically will get when I go out. But I like steaks of all kinds. You guys, let me know. I want to see in the comments section what the consensus is of the best steak and the way you like it cooked. Okay. And mine can be seasoned with salt and pepper, and it can be creatively seasoned. Okay. I'm pretty open to it.
Let's turn it back to the dawn of human civilization, where cooking meats was as primal as the crackling fire that they roasted over. Early humans gathered around communal fires, focusing on making their food choices both edible and safe to eat. Cooking their food simply allowed for better digestion, with little room for luxuries such as flavor or texture. But as societies advanced, so did their culinary ambitions. Controlled by cooking methods like ovens and grills, this led to the realization that temperatures of doneness could bring out unique flavors and textures. So let's fast forward to the Renaissance, when the culinary arts blossomed across Europe. In the kitchens of France and England, chefs were honing their culinary craft and experimenting with flavors and textures. Although specific historical records do not pin down the exact moment the term doneness popped up into our lexicon, it's believed that variations of this term have been swirling around since at least 1150. By the 17th century, cookbooks began to provide detailed instructions on how to prepare meat, allowing diners to request their preferred level of doneness using terms like rare, medium, medium well, and well done. Prior to these terms, people simply would have used terms like underdone or undercooked. In the early days of the Americas, steak was a practical food source for settlers and pioneers. The abundance of cattle in the New World made it a favorite protein. Cooking methods were basic, often involving open flames and very rudimentary grills. The concept of steak doneness had yet to be formalized. Meat was typically cooked thoroughly to mitigate health risks. As America moved into the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution brought together significant advancements in food production and preparation. Improved cooking appliances and temperature control methods allow for more precision in cooking meat. Steakhouses.
Now, I was told that with steak, and I think I was told this by a chef, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that with a steak, he said you can literally just sear both sides of the steak, not long, and eat it that way. You know what I mean? And it's safe. Now, to me, that is gross. All right. It's pretty gross. I couldn't do it, but it just, he said that it's safe to eat it that way. You know, I've never really fact checked it, but I do remember a chef telling me that.
Began to emerge in urban centers like Chicago and New York, catering to the growing middle to upper class who sought a fine dining experience. During this time, the concept of steak doneness, ranging from rare to medium, to take shape, influencing both culinary trends and customer preferences. In the post-World War II era, it marked another pivotal moment in the history of steak doneness in America. Urbanization and the rise of the backyard barbecue culture popularized grilling as a social activity. Americans began to experiment with different levels of steak doneness, leading to regional preferences. For instance, the Midwest developed a reputation for favoring their steaks medium to medium well, while the coastal areas leaned towards a rarer preparation.
Oh, wow.
However, the preference for well-done steaks remained ingrained for many Americans. Well-done steaks were still considered the norm in many households, reflecting a mix of traditions and personal tastes. For a significant portion of the population, well-done steaks symbolized a sense of familiarity and comfort rooted in generational cooking practices. However, for Black Americans,
here we go.
This epic tale of steak doneness begins in the smoke-filled kitchens of southern plantations. Enslaved African Americans often found themselves relegated to the kitchen scraps and the grisly, seemingly unedible parts of the animals that were often discarded. Faced with tough, stewy cuts of meat.
This is like chitlins and or chitterlings. I never know how to pronounce that. Gizzards. This is one of the reasons why Black folks in America know how to season their food really good and how to make pretty much, for lack of a better term, lemonade out of lemons. Okay. And to this day, a lot of it's passed down. A lot of the what is that slimy meat that it's called sauce meat or hog head cheese, all these different types of foods that were still passed down from like the grandmother feeding it to the kids grew up and still eat it to this day. A lot of people during Thanksgiving still cook the stankiest bucket of chitlins. or chitterlings, however you said. And it's absolutely disgusting. I remember when I was a kid, my mom, I knew my mom for a few years. My mother, she used to try to get me to eat her chitterlings, and I was a hungry kid all the time. I would pretty much eat anything, but I could smell it and how it smelled when she cooked it. I said, I don't care how it tastes, I'm not eating it. And I was like 7, and that was disgusting. But yeah, I didn't know that slaves could even eat steak.
They rose to the challenge, wielding slow cooking as their magic wand. As smoky aromas filled the air, these forgotten pieces were transformed into tender, flavorful dishes, elevated by the infusion of herbs, spices, and a lot of love. The culinary practices among Black Americans have deep roots in African traditions, adapted and evolved throughout the harsh realities of enslavement. Enslaved Africans brought these traditions with them to the Americas and then infused them with Southern cuisine, forced to make...
Well, I got to hear that again. I did not know that.
And a lot of love. The culinary practices among Black Americans have deep roots in African traditions, adapted and evolved throughout the harsh realities of enslavement. Enslaved Africans brought these traditions with them to the Americas and then infused them with Southern cuisine.
Okay, so it was brought here. So some of these methods were brought here by slaves. I didn't know that.
Forced to make do with lesser cuts of meat, they turned to slow cooking methods such as barbecuing and braising. These techniques brilliantly turn necessity into culinary innovation by rendering tougher cuts of meat tender and delicious. Over time, this tradition of well-cooked meats, including steak, became a hallmark of Black kitchens. This preference likely evolved due to a mix of necessity and cultural adaptation. By cooking tougher cuts of meat for extended periods of time, the meat was transformed into something edible. Safety concerns also played a role during this time when foodborne illnesses were rampant and medical care was extremely limited. Thoroughly cooked meat, especially pork and poultry, was the only option. Safety measures further cemented the tradition of well-cooked meat in Black culinary practices. Following emancipation, the culinary story took a new turn.
Forgive me, I'm focusing, but my brain goes to an episode of Black Jeopardy I reacted to where they said something like, this is brought to you by well-cooked steak. If there's a speck of red on that steak, it's going back, or I know I'm slaughtered, something like that. But it was funny, all right? And then now we're coming to full circle with this small educational video here.
Was extremely limited. Thoroughly cooked meat, especially pork and poultry, was the only option. Safety measures further cemented the tradition of well-cooked meat in Black culinary practices. Following emancipation, the culinary story took
these photos needed some lighting.
New turn. Waves of African Americans surged from the rural South into bustling metropolis in the North and the West during the Great Migration. This mass movement spurred significant culinary exchange and adaptation, access to a wide variety of foods, including better cuts of meat, providing opportunities for experimentation with different cooking methods and levels of doneness, leading to an evolution that established traditions while paying homage to their roots. Yet, well-cooked meat remained the norm. During the Jim Crow era, African Americans endured relentless systemic, economic, and social inequities that permeated every aspect of their life. Far beyond separate drinking fountains and separate schools, this was a time where economic exploitation wove itself into the daily fabric of Black existence and manifested even in seemingly the simple act of purchasing food. Imagine walking into a grocery store where the shelves were sparse, produce was bruised, and the meat was past expiration. There were tales of butchers fully aware of the limited options that were available to Black shoppers who shamelessly offloaded their nearly expired meat. Black families were then forced.
Damn. No FDA back then, and the FDA is not doing their job now, so I guess that's not saying much, but it's a crazy time, you know. A lot of people complain about a lot of things, and even they complain about the time that we live in. I don't. I think that we're living in the greatest time in terms of the things that we have. I think that with history, we forget how much suffering went back then. There's a lot of great things that I wish we could go back to as far as some things in history, especially with things like family and community, things of that nature. But yeah, I think that, the fact that you can just go to the grocery store and buy a steak or go to a restaurant or whatever and get whatever you want. You don't have to hunt for your food. Yeah, we're living in some of the greatest times, in my opinion.
There were tales of butchers fully aware of the limited options that were available to black shoppers who shamelessly offloaded their nearly expired meat. Black families were then forced to cook that meat thoroughly to ensure that it was safe to eat. This was not just a matter of poor business practices, but a daily reminder of the systemic barriers deliberately designed to demean and exploit.
That would have been a time for me to go vegan. I know that's like a popular, I'm not a vegan, but I mean, you got expired meat on the shelf, vegetarian, vegan, that's when you can make the case for me.
That it was safe to eat. This was not just a matter of poor business practices, but a daily reminder of the systemic barriers deliberately designed to demean and exploit. These butchers and shop owners were just one cog in a larger machine of Jim Crow exploitation. Black communities during this time had extremely limited access to mainstream markets or resources. As a result, they often relied on local businesses within their own communities. Businesses themselves were entangled in a system intent on keeping black people economically disadvantaged. The economic struggles of these small businesses made it difficult for them to then provide high quality goods, further entrenching this cycle of exploitation. In this harsh reality,
colored waiting room,
it is very plausible that butchers and other food suppliers took advantage of black customers by selling them low quality, nearly expired products. Such practices would fit seamlessly into the broader patterns of discrimination and economic exploitation that defined the era. While direct documentation
we cater to white trades only. All right.
Of butchers specifically selling expired meats to black customers is sparse. The collective memory, personal narratives, community accounts handed down through generations paint a compelling picture of these injustices. By the mid-20th century, an unstoppable wave swept through America, irrevocably changing the fabric of society. The civil rights movement not only...
This integration killed black business owners, and there was a lot of things that were good, but a lot of things that were negative in terms of this.
Fought for justice, but it also ignited a vibrant sense of pride and connection within the African American community. This new vigor infused every part of life, especially in the kitchen, where African American chefs and cooks began to receive recognition that they so long deserved. Their culinary talents illuminated the rich and diverse culinary heritage that had long been overlooked. Amidst this culinary tapestry, one tradition unfurled like a banner, and this was a preference for
big grill. Looks like you can roast a pig in that thing.
Done steaks. Today, across America, choices about how to cook steak reflect more than just personal preferences. And as we stated, they are intertwined with traditions and family histories. And while many cherish their steaks well done as a preference rooted in earlier generations and often linked to safety concerns and cooking methods passed down from families, in the broader landscape of the American steak preferences.
Listen, I can eat all those steaks. All right. I'm a savage. All right? I'm not, I could even eat this one. All right. This actually doesn't look too bad. Well, you guys can't see what I'm pointing at, but the one on the far right, I can eat all of these. If the steak's not too dry, I always consider it, and it could be just my childhood. It's a luxury food,
And family histories. And while many cherish their steaks well done,
in some countries they don't have an option to eat steak
as a preference rooted in earlier generations and often linked to safety concerns and cooking methods passed down from families. In the broader landscape of the American steak preferences, we find that the variety of doneness levels tell their own stories. Statistics show that medium rare is the most popular doneness, with about 38% steak enthusiasts worldwide preferring this level of doneness.
That's my go-to.
32% of Americans prefer a medium steak. Other preferences like rare and medium well each garner around 12% of the population, while a well-done steak is chosen about 6% of the
Wait a
time.
minute, am I medium rare or medium? I really can enjoy both based off of these pictures, if that's the way it's supposed to look. Okay. Because I've gotten some medium rare steaks and they were damn near rare.
However,
Or well
within
done.
the African American community, a unique pattern emerges around the medium well steaks at 37%, a preference that is a bit different from the overall trend. Then, close behind that is medium and well done steaks, who are also popular in the African American community at 28 and 25% respectively. So it seems that African Americans still have a very high preference for a well done steak. But before I leave,
It's just passed down from culture to culture. Just same way in 2025, people are still eating pig guts.
today, we're going to leave you with one last note. Renowned food writer and historian Jessica B. Harris captured the sentiment about Black people and their steak doneness perfectly. The African American table is one that is rooted in the legacy of survival, adaptation, and ultimately resilience. Thank you.
Beautiful.
This has been One Mic Black History. I'm your host, Country Boy. If you love stories like this, you can find more stories like this at onemichistory.com.
And I'll link the content creator in the description. So my question to you guys is, what's your favorite steak? I was watching that T-bone there. I've never ordered a T-bone steak before, so I don't think I've ever tasted one. But I've tried different cuts, of course, sirloin, filet, ribeye. But T-bone, I don't think I've ever gotten to. All right. And how do you order your steak? I'd be curious. And also, what's the best steak you've ever had? All right. I'd be curious to know. If you like this type of content, do me a big favor, like the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that good stuff. And I appreciate you guys for watching. Peace.
Yes! Look what I have created!